Peace, y'all. I hope all of y'all are doing well. I don't want to waste no time because guess who already recorded an analysis last night but was not recording sound? This girl. I want to talk about Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl performance. Of course, this is still an early analysis. The performance only happened on Sunday. I am recording this on Tuesday. A lot of folks are coming out with the Easter eggs that they have noticed and all that, but I just wanted to come at y'all from my specific lens as a storyteller, as a theater artist, hip hop head, and a Black woman. So let's go. Now, if y'all have not seen yet on my channel, I did a video breaking down the pre-Super Bowl interviews that Kendrick did with Apple Music, as well as what he did with Timothy Chalamet. I still don't know how to pronounce that man name. I'm sorry. But anywho, Kendrick gave us some clues about this performance that definitely showed as far as the themes that we saw. Biggest clue that he had is that this is a continuation of what he's already been doing as an artist. This is not something that he looks at as a specific moment, and this meaning this era, this Grammy sweep that he had, the rap beef he had with Drake. It's a continuation of what he's already been doing, and we see the visual callbacks to a lot of what he's done before. Biggest thing that stood out to me, that GNX trailer that he recorded. We see that he's wearing a jacket, a Letterman jacket, very similar to what he's wearing in that GNX trailer, right? And the jacket, at least the one that he's wearing at the Super Bowl, says Gloria. We learn on GNX through that final track that Gloria is his pen. That is his love of hip hop. Gloria is essentially his storytelling capability. It's his artistry. It's his craft. So he's wearing that on his back. That gives us a clue about what GNX was about. It also gives us a clue about what this Super Bowl performance was going to be about, and that is strictly rap. Looking back at that trailer, we all saw that he had two GNXs in that studio with him, right? And a lot of us speculated, does that mean there's going to be a double album? I don't think there's going to be a double album anymore, and I'll tell you why. The last time we saw Kendrick Lamar with two cars on a stage was the BET Awards when he performed All Right. And that performance was such a pivotal moment in his career because it was the first time his music was associated with politics. It was Fox News, Geraldo Rivera, who really ate him up over that performance, him standing on top of the police car. You know, the I don't like it. The intro that we heard on DNA was a result of that performance that he did. In that performance, he's standing on police cars. We see a whole bunch of dudes popping out this in a similar fashion to how we saw them pop out of that GNX that was on stage. So he replaced the GNX with police cars, meaning that it's an evolution of the story that he was already telling of the hood coming to a setting that it's not supposed to be allowed to be in. We know who's allowed to stand on police cars and riot and who's not. Yeah? So just that visual storytelling of the two GNXs and the two police cars, I really believe that that GNX trailer was more a trailer for Kendrick's Super Bowl performance than it was for the album itself, because he starts off the performance with that song, but I'm getting ahead of myself, y'all. Back to the script. First thing I noticed was the instrumental that played prior to his performance. And this is when the Super Bowl is just announcing, Kendrick Lamar. And I noticed the song playing was called The Old Guard is Dead. And it's by an American rapper from Philly. His name is Gais Guevara. And that song was released in January 2025, really recently, which points at another clue that Kendrick gave us about his obsession with the present, his obsession with now. He said that he respects the past, but he's so obsessed with what's going on now and what's going on in the present. Going back to that old guard is dead, the phrase the old guard, if you're unfamiliar with it, old guard can refer to an established, traditional, or conservative group within a political party, organization, or industry, often resisting change or reform. Don't that sound like what's going on right now? Just as important as that All Right performance was for the BET Awards, which happened at the height of the Black Lives Matter movement, at the height of police brutality being covered on the news. Here we are in an era where there is an attack on Black people, diversity, equity, and inclusion, an attack on hip hop, lawsuits being filed left and right, attack on artistic expression, attack on Black history. It makes sense that he would start with that declaration that the old guard is over when the old guard feels like they won right now. Even with the NFL removing end racism from their end zone. The week before this happens, Kendrick is taking down the old guard by the political act of just being himself, just being Black, and just focused on this rap music, which has always been about resistance, which has always been about representing those of us who are considered the bottom of society and bringing our stories and our style to the forefront. When we think about the old guard, it's often used to describe aging leadership that holds on to power while a younger or more progressive generation seeks to take over. So the takeover begins with this performance, y'all. A quote I found interesting from that artist of the old guard is that Gaius Guevara, when he's talking about his song, is that restriction always breeds innovation. And this song is an example of that. The lack of sample options at my disposal forced me to work with unfamiliar songs, sounds, and flows. The result is me and my Navy storming the pier, the citizens look in fear because they know we won't be leaving. Not only is that a bar, that also gives us very much the energy of this performance, because this was not a performance for middle America. This one was for hip hop. This one was for the culture. That sentence, me and my Navy storming the pier, the citizens look in fear because they know we won't be leaving, all up and through the performance. And also Kendrick opening with that GNX trailer song, something so current. Most of us don't know the words to that song, and it set the stage that y'all might not know the words to this, but guess what? That's what it is now. In that Apple interview, Kendrick also mentioned that it would be focused on storytelling. So the GNX trailer, that trailer was a precursor to the Super Bowl performance. So we got to look at what story is he telling here, right? To me, this is a story that celebrates hip hop, but it also celebrates the power of now, that philosophy of Eckhart Tolle that Kendrick leans on so much in the things that he talks about now, as well as the heavy themes of Eckhart Tolle that was on his album before GNX, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. This explains why he didn't do a traditional Super Bowl performance, which would have been an overview of his greatest hits. That's what everybody expected. But he's always stayed in his own lane. He's always followed his own philosophy and done things the opposite way than we expect. That's very much what he's been about. That's very much the PG Lang philosophy of staying underground. All right, so with the performance, before the camera zooms in on Kendrick, we see a board that looks like tic-tac-toe with 9 squares, and this opens up the theme of games. Games has been something that Kendrick has been referencing, from the hopscotch and the Not Like Us video to the piñata, all of that, right? And then we hear the immediately recognizable voice of Mr. Sam Mother Jackson. And he comes in like a circus ringleader. Sam Jackson being the narrator is so symbolic, y'all, for a number of reasons. Yes, Sam, Uncle Sam, we know that, right? But let's look at it further. Samuel L. Jackson is one of the most prolific actors of our time. He's one of the hardest working actors. His career has spanned so long, and he is so iconic. In addition to that, Sam Jackson has been very vocal in the past about non-Black American actors coming in and taking roles from Black American actors, specifically when it comes to playing historical figures. Think David Oyelowo playing MLK in Selma. That, I believe, was the moment when Sam Jackson spoke up about that. This is very much a parallel to Drake, capitalizing off of an art form and music styles that are not originally his. When we look at what Kendrick said during one of the award speeches he gave at the Grammys, when he quoted Punch from TDE, he said, "Respect the craft. Respect the craft." Another connection with Sam Jackson and Kendrick is they don't code switch. They don't code switch at all. Who they are in this interview is who they are talking to these people. And I love that. I love that. It's unapologetic. For those who've been following Kendrick's career, we know Uncle Sam is definitely a tie to his second studio album, To Pimp a Butterfly. Uncle Sam is a character that's referred to on that album from the songs Wesley's Theory, from the video for Free, All Right also. He's symbolic of the American ideal and when America was quote unquote great. Samuel L. Jackson proclaims, "This is a great American game," which has a double meaning, y'all. It refers to the American game of football, but it also refers to the American game of rap. Sometimes the rap game remind me of the crack game. Put in the comments if you know where that came from. So then next we hear the instrumental to Whacked Out Murals, and Kendrick opens the performance crouched, like I said, on that Buick GNX, rapping that song from the trailer, which that was bold. It's bold to start a performance with a song that barely anybody knows. Then those dancers come out of the car. It's like a clown car, y'all. It's like how many Bamas is going to come out this car, but it was amazing. And it reminded me of how Black people ended up on this continent in the first place. The droves of Black people that were implanted on this land unwillingly from the belly of ships. I might be reaching there, but it just felt symbolic to me, y'all. So Kendrick finishes that GNX trailer by stating, "The revolution about to be televised. You picked the right time, but the wrong guy." Of course, it's a reference to Gil Scott-Heron. The revolution will not be televised. That came out in 1969. So he says it's the right time. It is the right time. It's the right time of Kendrick's career. He's the biggest star in rap. He knocked Drake off a throne. When we think of the revolution will not be televised, that song critiques mass media's role in shaping public consciousness. And it emphasizes that real change does not come from commercialism, it comes from action. Action in the streets. It doesn't come from the passivity of sitting down and watching media, it comes from actually doing something. This feels very much in line with Kendrick's general rejection of materialism in his work and his focus on improving oneself before focusing on society. So Kendrick says, "You picked the right time, but the wrong guy." This is definitely the right time. He's at the peak of his career. He's fresh off a record-breaking year. Who else had a rap album that had most of the tracks in the #1? Tell him Kendrick did it. Also, Kendrick calling himself the wrong guy has a double meaning. It's tongue-in-cheek. He's making reference to everybody complaining about Lil Wayne should have been the one who was chosen. I hope all y'all real quiet after all that. Can you imagine? I'm not even going to get into it. Much respect to Wayne, but I'm sorry. No. Sorry. There's no comparison to what Kendrick pulled off versus what could have been done with Weezy. I love Weezy, but nah. It also is, to me, a reference to Kendrick's verse, his feature on Future's Mask Off, where he said, "Gotta look itself and ask what happened. How y'all let a conscious nigga go commercial while only making conscious albums? How y'all let the braids on TV? How y'all let the hood at the table?" Y'all let the hood at the table by inviting that man to the Super Bowl, and he brought the hood with him. And he lets us know as much when we hear the women say, "Someone better squabble up." And he goes into Squabble Up, which is a song about throwing hands, but also looking back at the Squabble Up video, there are hints to this performance. We have the woman who is dressed in the tennis outfit, which, a lot of us connected that to Serena Williams because she too is from Compton. She was also referenced in Not Like Us because Drake has disrespected her in the past. And guess who was featured in the Super Bowl performance? Serena Williams. Then we got the two lowriders. Compare that to the two GNXs in the GNX trailer. We have the Pan-African flags. Compare that to the American flag representation in the Super Bowl performance. We also have Kendrick in the middle of chaos, essentially in the middle of culture. We have the different aspects of culture. We got the ghetto girls, which we see in the performance with the bobs with the half cherry red, half black. We have dance. And I was also thinking about that Squabble Up video with the Soul Train board where the two people with the Soul Train line, you have one woman who has the very Queen Latifah style cap on, so very much like 90s. Then you got a man with a jerry curl, which seems like Soul Train, but what was the hairstyle that Sam Jackson had in his most popular role, or one of his most popular roles? We know him from Pulp Fiction. Jerry curl. I don't know. It's just all these connections. And the fact that on that board it says omnia est aliquida, which in Latin means everything is something. Everything means something. Everything means something. We know that with Kendrick's work. And then on top of that, in that video, you have the reference to Ice-T's cover with the woman with the thong on with the machine gun. So very much loud hip hop, loud West Coast rap. And you got the man who is sticking out his fists, the Radio Raheem reference from Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing. So all those different aspects definitely showed themselves in this performance. And then him having Squabble Up be the song is not really a family friendly song. Again, the song is about fighting. Also with the Serena reference. Y'all remember the Squabble Up video where the woman comes through and knocks the dude out and steals his money? I feel like that was Serena getting her lick back. She got her lick back by crip walking on that stage. Kendrick opening up with a song that's not very family friendly, Squabble Up. It doesn't match the family friendly imagery of the Super Bowl, which I find hilarious because football is like the most dangerous sport there is. When we hear the crunching of bones when they tackle each other. And then also just thinking about how violent this country is and how it was founded on violence. Of course, Squabble Up is one of the most American things that one can do, ain't it? But yeah, seeing that made Black folks warm my heart. Given, like I said, the political climate, the end of NFL putting end racism, which, I mean, did they really mean that anyway? Also, this is the last time we're going to see something like this in a minute. Similar to when Janet Jackson performed at the Super Bowl, Gate, like, how y'all let the hood on TV? It's going to be a while. In my estimation, it's going to be a while before we see the hood on TV again. So thank you, Kendrick. I also have to point out the physicality, Kendrick's physical fitness. That man is dancing. He is rapping with the mic on. He was running across a football field. He is aging like fine wine, y'all. I love to see it. He is 37 years old. He's proof that Black don't crack as long as you take care of yourself. Take care of yourself, drink your water, exercise, meditate, do all that stuff. He ends Squabble Up with that line, I've been a dog. And then Sam Jackson comes on with the dog whistle of calling it too loud, too reckless, too ghetto. Words that have been weaponized against Black folks forever. When we think about even Section 80, how Kendrick Lamar talks about Reaganomics and how crack and guns were brought to the hood, and then you tell folks to be scared of us. So I've been a dog, connected to dog whistle, felt just right. So Uncle Sam. It's funny too, just Uncle Sam, because Black folks, we call older men Unc. So I'm just going to say Unc. He is definitely forecasting what the mainstream media and middle America response will likely be to Kendrick's performance. And he asked Kendrick, Mr. Lamar, do you really know how to play the game? Then tighten up. So then we go to humble. And for me, tightening up means do what's expected of you. And also listen to the lyrics, be humble. And when we look at the choreography, how tight it is, how military-like it is. They are marching, they are bobbing their heads. It's also a nod to the visual imagery of the Humble video. But I had seen this video years ago. I wish I could find it, y'all. And it went through the evolution of dance history for Black folks. And it talked about how you can tell what's going on in society based on the popular dances that Black folks do. So back when everybody was Millie rocking and, doing all that dance that was close to the body, that was at the height of Trayvon Martin, Mike Brown, Black Lives Matter protests, where us as Black people weren't supposed to take too much space, y'all. But compare that to the freedom of movement that we saw in this Kendrick performance, the freedom of movement that we saw at the Pop-Out concert. Kendrick loves to play with duality. He loves to play with opposites. So we have the opposite of straight up marching, and then we got the, popping and dancing, and I love it. It was such a beautiful stage picture. Them making up the American flag. It showed that Black folks are at the fabric of society. We built this ish. We've been here. We are America. It reminds me of one of my favorite Langston Hughes poems, I Too Am America. I'm going to read it to y'all. It's short. Hold on real quick. The poem goes, I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody will dare say to me, eat in the kitchen then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too am America. Ain't that beautiful, y'all? All right. Also, the chorus of humble, be humble, sit down, it takes on a different meaning at the Super Bowl because it very much sounds like shut up and dribble, which has been the sentiment from conservative media when Black entertainers and athletes speak out against what's going on in society. And also, just when with the movement, I do theater, I direct theater, and I love the slow motion that they were doing and the movements because, again, it shows that you got to be safe, you got to keep it quiet and slow. And that's what they expect of us from society, right? But then Kendrick, he does his thing and he says, hold on. And we hear what sounds like imitation machine gun sounds along with marching band drums, and the dancers just dart off in different directions. And Kendrick goes into DNA. He shows more of that athleticism running down that football field while rapping. Like, what in the Beyonce, Giselle, Knowles, Carter was he doing, yo? Like, he's so fit. I loved it. And it's very much like the Super Bowl promo commercial that came out with him and SZA when he's on the phone and he says, this field is much bigger than people think it is. Yeah. He showed us he's not just at the top of his career, he's at the top of his physical condition. He's also at the top of his performance capability. And then with DNA, he goes into that line, I know murders, conviction, burners, boosters, burglars, ballers, day of redemption. And the dancers are shaped like the red and white stripes of the flag, but they're rowdy at this point because, yeah, they're America, but Black America is all up in this performance. And right before he says that line, I wish I was fed forgiveness, he says, hold on again, and we hear euphoria come in. He is a Gemini. There's that peaceful side, that philosophical side, and there's that Compton side. You could take out the hood, but you can't take the hood out of him, okay? In this euphoria performance, Kendrick and his dancers are marching down the field. It was a beautiful stage picture. It's like he's leading an army. And even the way he's marching very much looks like the Super Bowl appearance that he had a few years ago when Dr. Dre and Snoop had their set. Look at how he's marching with his dancers and walking toward the camera. Very similar. Now, there is a part that I did not understand, and I want y'all to enlighten me. He says, since prom and knee, it's been KDOT. What's prom and knee? I looked at Genius and it said, since Prime want me. That don't make no sense to me. Let me know. But then he has a call back to the pop out and like that where he ends it with bomb. Then we go to Man at the Garden. And we see a dancer on top of the streetlight, which is a callback to Kendrick's All Right video, where he is standing on top of the light pole. And we see these dancers dressed in white doing this a cappella kind of doo-wop instrumental while he raps Man at the Garden, I Deserve It All. They all got gold fronts and wearing long white tees, very much like New Orleans soldier flags. You know, it's just very reminiscent of the hot boys, you know, showing their gold fronts. And I think it was him showing respect to New Orleans, showing respect to where he was and acknowledging that this is happening in New Orleans. So Sam Jackson comes out and he says, oh, I see you brought your homeboys, the old culture cheat code. Scorekeeper, deduct one life. And we know that this goes with the game theme, but it is so ominous to see Uncle Sam looking at the camera and saying deduct one life about a Black man. It's a commentary on how Black lives are seen as disposable, how being with your homeboys is enough reason to deduct a life. And it also, you know, on a less serious note, it echoes the critics of Not Like Us, the Drake fans who say that Kendrick's been riding the West Coast wave, or, you know, he needed to bring all his homeboys out with him at the pop out for him to be successful. Please. All right. So he really gets, what's the word? He really brings it to the hood by doing Peekaboo. That song is a banger, right? But who expected him to perform Peekaboo? That song is a banger, but it was surprising. I didn't expect him to perform that song, and it was amazing to hear that the audience went up. Like, that is one of the songs that's not as big off of GNX in my opinion, but the fact that the audience was cheering just shows how big Kendrick Lamar is in this moment, how big his current catalog is, that he has done enough in his career that his most recent album was big enough that this whole stadium of people, a lot of them still know the songs. Some people have been speculating about that X formation on stage and the connection to the unaliving of the rapper XXXTentacion and Drake and all that. I don't know nothing about that. I try to stay away from those type of theories, and I try as much as I can to stay away from gossip and just focus on what I see in front of me. So I ain't gonna comment. But the dancers, they get behind Kendrick when he mentions his homies. The way the dancers are behind Kendrick during Peekaboo is symbolic. It's like Kendrick is covered by the culture. It also reminds me of just the image of the pop-out picture, as well as the image on the cover of To Pimp a Butterfly, where he is enveloped by the hood. He is enveloped by the culture. He is of the culture. He is the community. He's not talking about the community. I also think it's dope that he rapped part of the feature rappers' work on there. It just was good to give a shout out to a smaller LA artist. And then we hear the ladies behind him saying, peekaboo. Kendrick teases the Not Like Us by saying, I want to make a move. I want to perform their favorite song, but you know they love to sue. I scrumped, y'all. It was the perfect way to build crowd anticipation. We heard how excited the crowd got when that instrumental came through, and it just reminded me, y'all, MC means move the crowd. Kendrick knows how to move the crowd because he's not just a rapper, he is an MC. This is an art. All right, so then Uncle Sam comes in and says, oh, you done lost your damn mind, right before we go into Luther. And we see all his female dancers dressed in red like SZA, and she sounded and looked so pretty. Her voice just sounded so good, and that red hair really suits her. On a side note, I noticed that the lights that we see from the aerial view make geometric shapes. Those standard geometric shapes reminded me of just how Luther, and then also all the stars, are very much standard hip-hop R&B collaborations, very much standard what one would expect to see at the Super Bowl. In fact, this is the only part of the performance that looked like a traditional Super Bowl performance to me, like they were actually on stage and performing together in a way that excited the crowd, and it gave breath to the performance. And even them performing All the Stars, that's the soundtrack for Black Panther, a Marvel movie. Marvel is so American. The Avengers are led by who? Captain America, or were, spoiler alert. All right, so all right, then Uncle Sam says, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's what America wants. Nice and calm. You're almost there. Don't mess this. And then we hear that Not Like Us instrumental come through, and the crowd goes wild. Now, let me stop. So Uncle Sam pops up, and the ladies say, oh no. And they say it similar to how Kendrick said it in King Kunta when he was dissing Drake. The oh no, so I wouldn't tell. Most of y'all sharing bars like you got the bottom bunk and a two-man cell. A two-man cell. That line was about Drake, if y'all ain't know. Kendrick says it's a cultural divide. I'ma get it on the floor. Aha, reference to DMX. Watch my DMX GNX video. Cause who had a song called Get It on the Floor? Get it on the floor. Get it on the floor. The dog, DMX. The ladies who are surrounding Kendrick ask him, you really about to do it? And Kendrick replies, 40 acres and a mule. This is bigger than music. And that right there, y'all, is the thesis. 40 acres and a mule is such a Black reference. It refers to reparations, which were promised to freed enslaved people, freed enslaved Black people in 1865. It was a order that was signed in 1865 that guaranteed 40 acres of land and a mule to be able to help till that land. And it was a way to give back that land that was owned by Confederates to the people who had to work and build on that land. But guess what? Abraham Lincoln was assassinated 5 months later, and America broke its promise. So 40 acres and a mule is an important phrase. Guess who muted the phrase 40 acres and a mule? Black Entertainment Television, owned by Viacom. 40 acres and a mule was muted like it was a cuss word. So him being able to say that on a national stage and educate us, because I bet people going to be looking up what does 40 acres and a mule mean, similar to how he educated us in that third verse of Not Like Us. Once upon a time, all of us was in chains. He is often dropping gems so that we could find out the information for ourselves. I love that. Each one teach one. And then Kendrick saying this is bigger than music. It shows us that this is so much bigger than Drake. I was watching The Breakfast Club, and Charlemagne, I respect his point, and I understand where he was coming from, where he said, I'm just surprised that Kendrick wants his legacy to be so tied to a rap beef, to Drake. This is so much bigger than Drake. When we think about rap and the expression and how, like I said at the beginning of this video, the attack on First Amendment rights and how rap is freedom of expression. It's liberation, it's all those things. This was an unfiltered, I mean, he had to censor himself, but it was an unfiltered celebration of Black American culture. From the costumes to the dance to the disregard for the mainstream white audience. This was for us, y'all. This was for the culture. Kendrick said, I do this for the culture to let them know what a look like in a bulletproof Rover. He was bulletproof on that stage, y'all. The people from NFL, when they were asking about the Super Bowl performance and Not Like Us, they said Kendrick could do what he wants. That sounds like bulletproof to me. Compare that to Drake. Let me get it out. Compare that to Drake in Australia dressed like Luke Cage. Bulletproof. Who's bulletproof in this case? Okay. Going back to that 40 acres and a mule and the concept of reparations, I feel like, in a way, this performance could be seen as reparations for the censorship of Black artists and athletes throughout the NFL, the censorship of Blackness in sports. So going back to that Not Like Us, the preview, the ladies ask, you really about to do it? And Kendrick says, yeah, they tried to rig the game, but you can't fake influence. Sure can't, because we all heard that whole crowd go up. We all heard everybody say A minor. That was such a moment. So Kendrick saying, yeah, they tried to rig the game, but you can't fake influence feels like a direct FU to Drake. When we think about how asinine the legal action that he's been taking is, how asinine it is that from losing this rap battle, it's like someone losing a chess game and deciding to flip over the table and throw all the pieces in the trash because they lost. That is essentially what he has done. People can look at it as, oh, he's being a sore loser, but that is dangerous behavior. He is trying to criminalize hip hop. The attempt to put regular people, regular YouTube influencers in legal documents is not okay. It's just not okay. F you. Like, I get it. Drake claiming the use of bots to amp up Not Like Us. Kendrick saying you can't fake influence, knowing that, is this a stadium full of bots too? Is America, every American hip hop fan who likes the song a bot? Hell no. You cannot fake influence. He swept up at the Grammys for a reason. The first rapper to win record of the year, y'all. You can't fake that. And then Kendrick gives us a big smile before saying, I'm tripping, I'm sliding, I'm riding through the back like BOOM! Riding through the back feels very much like a reference to riding on the back of the bus. Segregation, which is another aspect of American history. That moment of Kendrick smiling at the camera and saying, say Drake, I hear you like I'm young. Oh my gosh. All the dancers raising the number one. Oh my gosh, what a moment. We're going to be looking at that picture of Kendrick cheesing, staring at the camera for a long time, y'all. A long time. I love seeing Serena Williams. She looked beautiful. She was crip walking, just like how she was on the tennis court where she was being criticized, and it was beautiful. It was just a beautiful celebration. I love how PG Lang produces things, how they have an eye for the subtle. They have aerial views. They have different things happening on different parts of the stage. It's just beautifully, masterfully done. Then we close the TV off. We got the dancers forming a circle around Kendrick like a marching band, and they take away running when we hear mustard. And it really made me think, y'all, I feel like Kendrick wrote GNX and did that album in preparation for the Super Bowl. He's rapping about the Super Bowl while being at the Super Bowl. And it shows because he says, I'm in the city where them flags be getting thrown. And we see the dudes who were dressed like New Orleans hot boys, you know, where they throw their flags in the air. That is part of New Orleans culture, right? It was just so hype. It was beautiful to see Mustard on stage. I'm glad he's getting his moment too. It was just fun and energetic and hip hop. It was for us. It was for the culture. And in a time where so much is not for us, where books are being banned left and right, where Drake is still trying to get Not Like Us removed from streaming, being the hip hop Karen, essentially, by claiming that the song itself is anti-Semitic. It just shows a lack of depth and a lack of understanding of history of American history, of the history of the country in which he is capitalizing off of an American art form. So to close, the themes that stood out to me, of course, duality, that Gemini nature, staying within the lines versus choosing violence, also continuation, repeating imagery of Kendrick's that we've seen throughout his career, and also just that he has been on a consistent elevation from the beginning. From when he was 16, writing 16s, like he has been here, y'all, and it is inspiring. It's inspiring to see an artist, a Black artist, be his full self and bring his full self onto stage, and for that to be celebrated. It's a beautiful thing, y'all. It meant so much more than music. It was bigger than music. It was for the culture. Speaking of continuation, it was also a continuation of the things that Kendrick has been told us about himself. He been told us, if I gotta slap up, I'ma make it look sexy. He made it look sexy. And then he said, y'all can stay politically correct. I'm gonna do what I did. He said that on Whacked Out Murals. When we listen back to the song Triple X off of Damn, what that man say? He said, let somebody touch my mama, touch my sister, touch my woman, touch my daddy, touch my niece, touch my nephew, touch my brother. You should chip it, then throw the blow in his lap. Matter of fact, I'm about to speak at this convention. Call you back. Pray for me. Damn. But instead of a convention, this man spoke at the Super Bowl, the biggest stage in America. There is that complexity because when you come from a certain neighborhood and come from certain traditions, you don't wash that off of you. That part of what that is makes you who you are and gets you where you are. It's that grind, y'all. His performance also brought up the James Baldwin quote, I love America more than any country in the world, and exactly for this reason, I insist on the right to criticize her perpetually. Kendrick said, I respect the past, but I stay present. And he stayed so present. I felt it. I felt it as a member of the culture. Thank you, Kendrick. Thank you for celebrating our history, our culture on a national stage. Who put hip hop back in front of Ish? Tell him Kendrick did it. To those of y'all who made it to the end of this video, thank y'all. You a real one. If you haven't already, go on and subscribe. And if you're starting to feel me or whatever, consider becoming a member of the channel. I'll put a link in the description. Until next time, y'all. Peace.
I wasn't thinking about no Super Bowl for sure. We was thinking about the best verse and how we gonna split this $5 at Church's Chicken or something like that. It wasn't no Super Bowl. Going to the studio and getting a meal. But I think, well, what I know is the passion I have now is still the passion I had then.